Hello and welcome to the 1990 series. My name is Amanda O'Shea, the Loving Life Coach from the Serendipity Experience, and I've got with me today Jason Shiers from Manchester. Hey Jason, how you doing?
Hi Amanda, I'm great, thanks.
Thank you for being part of this 1990.
Thank you for asking me.
Yeah, and I love the title, Misunderstandings of the Mind. So I'm interested what's going to crop up in our conversation there. It's a great title. We first met, I think, on a webinar to do one of I think it was Harry and Greg's Addiction, Alcoholism and the Three Principles, and that's when I first saw you. And then I think we were on a few webinars, similar things to do with addiction and recovery, and we both have worked in that field. So and it's really nice then. So met you in London, met you at Viva, spent a bit of time at Viva this year, having that chat, and really nice to get to know you. And you're doing lots of great stuff out there, doing lots of your own talks, and you've got lots going on, hey?
Yeah. I've got I'm in the mid. Well, it's happening slowly, but I'm writing my book and creating my program, Infinite Recovery program, to deliver in treatment centres or organisations, for treating addiction using the principles. So I'm in that, it's flowing but slowly, and I'm not trying to rush it. It's kind of like I'm just enjoying the process of creating.
Good for you. I really like that article. I shared it the other day in the treatment centre where I work. The article that you did about is addiction really a disease? Is that what it was called? Is addiction?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, I worked on that for 6 months. I interviewed Bill Pettit about 6 months ago, and then it literally took me about 3 or 4 months of writing the article. About looking at all the common misconceptions about addiction. Is it really a disease? Is there really any answers in the past? Are we really powerless? What is a spiritual awakening? Some of the stuff what's in the steps, and 12-step recovery, but identifying that the misunderstanding comes from our understanding of the 12 steps. It's not given to us by the 12 steps. So it's not really a trying to play one off against the other or say one's better, but just really looking at beliefs that seem to be common amongst people who are in recovery, and sort of answering those questions. So it took me a few months of writing it, and then it took me a couple of months of politics of getting it pushed through to be able to be published. So yeah, I loved the article. I think it's great. And I don't think there's another article like that as in depth, like looking at all those sort of areas of addiction from an inside out understanding, So yeah, I do love it. Yeah.
Do you find there's any resistance, Jason, in the world that you've sort of trying to share the principles in the world of recovery? Do you come against resistance of people sort of being open to hearing something new that's not the traditional sort of 12-step or smart recovery? I mean, how is it? Are you feeling people are opening up a little bit more now, or is that?
I think in general, it depends. I guess it would depend if money's involved. It's kind of like then there's a lot of resistance. People have, and the same happened for me. As soon as I had my first big insight, I knew instantaneously on that day that I couldn't. I mean, I spent 5-6 years training as a psychotherapist, practice, in NLP, in CBT, in everything, as a person-centered counselor and all that stuff. And I knew within a day that I couldn't do any of that anymore. I just knew, as soon as I realized it, I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do? I can't take people into the past. I can't ask people about their relationship with their parents. It just didn't seem useful. But I didn't know what I was going to do. It's like I didn't know how it worked. So I think where money's involved, there's financial security is threatened from people that don't, that live an outside in understanding of life. Financial security is threatened, job security is threatened, and people just naturally push back because you're offering them something that they can't see. They're I guess effectively living their life at the level of consciousness that they're at, and what you're talking about is beyond what they can see as useful. So I get a lot of resistance, to be honest. I mean, some people are really open and just say, I don't really care, it just, if it works, it works, and I'm open to other things. And I've had people say, well, if you're a professional, you're open to all understandings, you know, as long, and you just base it on the results. And I've had people say, no, this is absolute nonsense. People will relapse and die if they follow this, you know. So it's an ongoing journey, you know, of helping, seeing where people are coming from, not getting caught up in the resistance, you know, and trying to find a way to be loving and understanding and kind to people who are resistant, you know, and you know, and not really taking it personally, you know. I mean, that's been, you know, I've had moments of little twinges where it's hit me like, oh, you know, kind of like that, you know, but then I've seen beyond that and thought, well, actually, it kind of makes sense that there's resistance, you know, because none of these are bad people. They're all great people. They all want to help somebody, you know, they all want to do the best they can given what their understanding is, you know. So it's kind of like, if you take it from that place, that you know, it kind of makes sense, you know, the resistance.
But I love that article, and I'll put the link to that on this video as well. So anybody watching this, we'd love you to take the time to have a read and you know, give us your feedback.
Yeah.
Can you tell me more about why you chose Misunderstandings of the Mind to talk about?
Yeah, I so love that name. It's got such a powerful ring to it for me, you know. And it was like, I can't even remember where it came from, but just out of the blue, it was when I had the idea to do a podcast, you know, my podcast called Misunderstandings of the Mind. And I thought, you know, I'm going to call my book that too. And somehow I grew this idea that it was going to be my brand, you know, and not like, I'm not like investing everything into that name or anything, but it just seems to organically be, you know, like growing in that way. And it made so much sense for me because it was like, you know, for a couple of reasons. One is my own story is so much full of misunderstandings, you know, of my own and the medical professionals or therapeutic professionals that I was sent to from the very early age, you know, of you know, 9 years old, being given my first mental health diagnosis and put on medication, you know, and then being passed through that psychiatric system and special schools and units and so on, to the point of getting into addiction, you know, and then you know, going through that system, you know, going to the doctors, getting prescribed opiate medication, benzodiazepines, and having street drugs as well, and then getting into recovery and, you know, just going to 12 steps and not even questioning the fact that, oh, I've got a disease, addiction is a disease, and so on. So it was like, it was just littered with so much misunderstanding. I mean, we both know that there's only really one misunderstanding, you know, and it's like, but at those times, you know, it was kind of like I was a depressed person, or I was an anxious person, or I was someone who struggled with being overweight and I needed help with my overweight, or I needed help with my beliefs or about myself, you know, for being overweight, or I needed help with addiction. You know, it was like, it was all encompassing an experience. And when I looked for help, I always looked for help in the area that I was struggling with, you know. So I didn't go searching on Google, is there just one misunderstanding that's causing me to suffer with addiction and anxiety? You know, I just thought, well, what do you do if you've got addiction? What do you do with depression? You know, it's kind of like, so it was just littered with misunderstandings. And I guess that ties into, you know, when I said there's two reasons, that they tie together. One is my own experience, and two is the fact that I guess from an IT digital marketing thinker person that I am, you know, I'm very much involved in what people look for when they're looking for help, you know. So I kind of see a lot of that. I see how people search and I see how people find help. So my own podcast was about creating different subjects that have a common misunderstanding, you know, and not because I think there's loads of different misunderstandings, but because I think it will help people that are looking around a certain subject to find the help that they need, to see the fact that really there's only one misunderstanding, and that is how we create our experience in the moment, you know.
Yeah. And it is, when it comes down to that, you know, it is that one misunderstanding, you know, that the only thing that's ever happening is that thought in the moment is creating our experience. The only thing we're ever feeling, you know, is thought in the moment. It's nothing outside, you know, nothing outside has the power to affect us positively or negatively. You know, not other people, situations, circumstances, events. We've got so used to hearing that or seeing that to be true. Sometimes it's interesting for me to remember what it's like not to see it like that. You know, like, I don't know. So the other day I had this situation where I was like, I don't remember in that moment. I was like, I can't remember not believing this. You know, and yet it's not that long ago. Like, it's not that long ago for me. Like 6-7 years ago till I really. But even though I'd been around the understanding of the three principles, I think it was maybe 18 months or something like that from the very first time that I got exposed to it, that I really saw, like, oh my God, 100% no exceptions to the rule. All that's ever happening is that thought in the moment is creating our experience. You know, I didn't see that straight away. So the misunderstanding was still playing out, even though, you know, I was busy reading every book going and reading every article and watching every video at the time. So I saw what was being pointed to, and I would even say it 100%, no exceptions to the rule, because I'd read it. But I think even having that, like, oh my God, like, I remember the moment when I saw that, like nothing, never. That's all that's ever happening. It's so simple, yet it takes a while for people to wrap their heads around what's being pointed to.
Yeah. When you were talking, it was funny. I was thinking, you know, it's like when in Sid's books, in Sid Banks's books, you know, he talks about seeing, and he kind of capitalizes, you know, or in other places where we write about, we may well capitalize the word seeing and knowing, you know, versus a traditional understanding of seeing and knowing. You know, it's kind of like, you know, I am a highly intellectual person, you know, and that got me in was such a terrible filter for me, you know, when I found this understanding that I would take everything in and try and process it. And it was like, I'd be like, yeah, I know was my favorite word, you know, like, I know, I know, I know, I know that, you know. It's kind of like, you can't tell me anything because I know that. And it couldn't bypass that filter of mine, that intellectual filter that, like, filtered it in, churned it around and spat it back out again, you know, did it make sense or not? And you know, I knew like intellectually for a long time before I really saw like seeing in capitals, you know, before I knowing in capitals, you know. It's kind of like, it made sense to me, but the fact that I was still suffering, you know, said to me that I didn't really see something, you know, I didn't really know something to be true, even though intellectually. And that really helped me to see the difference between getting it on an intellectual level and really sort of embodying that experience of seeing, oh no, my experience is being created by thought in the moment. And another thing I wanted to say about that was that even though I see it and I know it, doesn't mean I always like I'm free of all suffering and live life. You know, I sit cross-legged, palms up, floating around, thinking everything's wonderful. You know, because it's like, it's not like that. You know, it's kind of like, the thing is that, you know, I often have days where I get caught up in it. I'm sitting thinking, yeah, I know, I do really know. It's kind of like, I'm never saying to someone else, look, if you hadn't have done this, I wouldn't feel this way. I'm not doing that anymore. You know, it's kind of like, I might think it for a moment, you know, it doesn't last long. But like, I'm sat thinking, what is it that I'm not seeing here? You know, it's kind of like, what is it that I'm not seeing? So like, just the fact of like, you know, like, levels of consciousness, you know, change, you know, depending on my state of mind. And sometimes I see things deeper than others, and sometimes I'm affected by stuff, and some days I'm not, you know. So it's like, even knowing and seeing enough that my life changed, you know, unrecognizably. When I talk about changed unrecognizably, I mean my experience of life changed to the fact that I have such a joyful experience, you know, of days, and I have more connection, and I have more peace of mind, and I see the wisdom in my kids, and I have, you know, like, and I see beautiful things happening, you know, where I was completely tunnel vision, you know, angry, sort of resentful, closed down. That was my experience of life before. That's changed, but it's like, everything hasn't become perfect all of a sudden. I don't not have any off days, or I don't get caught out by things that happen to me, you know.
Yeah. And it's so things might, like you say, it's I love that your go-to point is like, what is it I'm not seeing? Not how dare you treat me like that, or how dare you, it's right. What am I not seeing? That's huge. That difference when that's where we go to first. I bet you're much easier to be around, right? I bet friends or family, or do you think you're easier to be around? Do you think there's something softened in the character of Jason, or do you?
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking about this recently with someone. I still think I've got a bit of an edge. Someone pointed it out to me the other day. And it was a harsh comment. And it was like, but it was from a beautiful person that I couldn't take harshly. I just knew it was a little. I don't like that, but I know it's true. It's kind of like, but yeah, I mean, certainly I do get that. People who know me don't experience me as harsh, but people who don't know me, it's kind of like I have that harsh edge at times, and it's because I'm so critical of myself. It's kind of like it's just something that's an ongoing, further seeing experience. But yeah, most people have said, you're so different. What have you done? I mean, that's how my addiction program came about, was the fact that in my work they said to me, what is it you're doing? Because you've changed so much and something's happened to you, and I want to know. So that was for me the invitation to sit down with a company owner and say, this is what's happened. This is how I see life now. And that's how he said, well, can you do this for us? And that's how my addiction recovery workbook came about, and my book and all sorts of came about from people seeing a difference in me, So, and I think we're often the last people to see it, right? I mean, I'm my own worst critic. I don't know about you.
Yeah, no, I think I'm great. But it's it's like, so you've got, I mean, this is really exciting for the world of recovery in the UK. In Europe, I don't know any other actual treatment center where there is somebody sharing the three principles as part of the program. I know that that's the Beyond Recovery team are working in the prison, and Sally Wise is in an addiction center where she used to be before she came across this, and her life and recovery changed. But I don't know, in America there's now treatment centers that are purely just three principle only. That's where the whole curriculum is based on. So this is still really new to the world of recovery, right? This is really, it's still really new, and I think that's so exciting that you've got that. You've actually got a workbook, or you've got a program together, and about to launch it in. I mean, that's super exciting for the world of recovery. Well done to you, because it does take a lot of time, and it does take a lot of sitting down and actually putting pen to paper. It's great, we can have great ideas and we can do stuff, but putting that down as a kind of program is, hats off to you, because I know what that's like, working in the treatment center and being the only one really that's sort of sharing the understanding. And actually we've got a therapist who's coming back to work for us, and she's also of this understanding. It's really nice when there's sort of somebody else, and it doesn't mean that the other therapists in a way aren't all pointing in the same direction as I am, but I'm so looking forward. I'm going to go and visit Gulf Breeze Recovery in Florida next year, and I can't imagine like every staff member having their understanding. I can't imagine how that must be to work in a treatment center like that. And I'm sure it's still got its up days and down days, and it's still a treatment center, it's still a recovery center, but it just feels like that feels like, wow, that must be much easier. It must be easier.
Yeah. I think like I've enjoyed the creation of my program. I enjoyed sitting here every night and writing stuff and drawing diagrams and creating infographics, and I did everything myself, because I just luckily that I've got those skills to be able to do that. And it just all and then got a book printed and everything as a prototype. so it was, that's been really cool. I mean, I'd love to deliver it in the treatment center. That resistance that we talked about, it's strong, and I don't know, and I don't know whether that's going to go ahead, but I've enjoyed the process of creating things and seeing where it's going, and there's always potential and lots of opportunity for the recovery world. It's kind of like, but if the people pressing the buttons don't see the potential in what you've done, which is often the case, it's kind of like, it's a little bit of an uphill battle, which is cool. I get it, but it's, I wish it was much simpler. I just wish it was much simpler, because the potential of changing the lives of the people that are suffering and struggling, it's kind of like there's so much more. There's so much more on offer, for them.
Yeah, and so it's really hopeful. That's what it is. It's really, really hopeful. And so you've got your book, you've got your book out, you've got your podcast, Misunderstandings of the Mind. You're you're still doing your other work. You're still doing your what do you call yourself these days, Jason? Or what do you?
What, coaching or digital? Yeah, coaching. Yeah, transformative coaching. So I still coach. Sometimes, I mean, the fact that I got a master's in psychotherapy is kind of like, it's good credentially, when you want to talk to places, but it's like, I wouldn't say I practiced as a psychotherapist, even though I'm kind of, governed, accredited, in governing bodies as one. It's kind of like, it shows that I've had some sort of formal training and bound by some ethical guidelines. But my coaching, my transformative coaching, inside out, seeing the innate health in people is where I look to. Certainly not. I'm not looking to unpick people's pasts or question their relationships with their parents or anything like that anymore. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, just doesn't make sense. So it's all exciting. I really look forward to seeing what you're up to and where that goes. And if I can help you in any way, or if we can do so, I'd love that. I'd love that, because it's ready. I think it is ready. I think that people don't know. When they don't know what's available. Or when people don't know what they need, or people don't know what's out there, so they stay in what they know, because they don't know what else is around the corner or in the unknown. And I think that's where I've been, I would say, most successful, or people have warmly welcomed when they've been around, let's say, recovery for a long time. And then they're more sort of like, oh, I've never heard this is something new. And so I think sometimes delivering it in a treatment center in that first month of people coming just through detox or whatever, I get that it might not be the best place for it to land, but we can still sow seeds, But down the road, and there was a client who recently just sent me a message that had been in maybe 2 years ago, and sent a message really lovely. She's like, oh, Amanda, I've just been speaking to somebody I know in the world of recovery, and they're talking about that they're all into the 3 principles, and I was like, oh, good, good for them, because this was like 2 years ago that she would have heard me talking about that, and it was like it was batted off, if you like. But because she came to the workshop, she would have done whatever, but and then you hear it again, and then you hear it again, and then you hear it again, and there gets a point where suddenly you just go, well, okay, what is it? What's this about? What you get more curious yourself. So we are sowing seeds. That's what we are. All your podcasts, all these little chats, just getting people curious. There is a misunderstanding to the way our experience is created that is at large, and there's now something else has been revealed in the world of psychology to say, well, what if it's not true the way that we thought it worked?
Yeah, not only has something else been revealed in the world of psychology, but it's scientific. It's kind of like, it's factually true. It is a principle. It's kind of like when you read our literature or the books and stuff that's created, it specifically talks, in Sid's books, about it being scientific, that it's kind of like all experience is created by thought in the moment. It's, and it's like, it's only consciousness that brings our experience into the world. and there's a spiritual intelligence behind life. You know, it's kind of like that. Whereas the rest of you know, everything else is kind of like wavy. You know, if you want, it's kind of like different. You know, it's all subjective experience, and it's all theoretical. You know, and it's all sort of made up from people's concepts and ideas about, you know, where experience comes from or how feelings are created and so on and things like that. But you know, that's what I like about this. You know, that it's kind of, you know, that it's just facts. You know, it's 3 simple facts about how experience is created. You know, that there's no experience outside of thought. You know, there isn't any. And I like asking that question, you know, to people, because it's a great opening question. You know, well, what experience have you had that looks like it comes outside of thinking? You know, and it's there is so much potential. You know, there's so much for the treatment industry. You know, there's so much. It's almost like, I know this is my interpretation. This isn't the truth of what happens, but it's almost like, oh, come to treatment, it'll be really hard, you know, you're gonna have to go to meetings for the rest of your life and you might just be okay. You know, that's my interpretation of what I see. That's probably not the truth of what's really said, you know, but it's kind of like, versus like, hey, you know, like, your potential is infinite. You know, I don't even know how good your life can be or what you can create in the world. You know, it's kind of like, to me, it's just a whole different, you know, a whole different ball game, you know.
It's the biggest secret. I feel like we've got the biggest secret in the world of recovery, and you know what? It's a big deal. You know, when what we're talking about is a paradigm shift, right? It's a real, you know, it's huge. Like this isn't like, oh, just another little kind of another little program. Just this is a huge big deal, and yet screaming from the top of the hill doesn't seem to pass the message on. It's this little one by one little conversations and little articles, and this slowly until suddenly it's coming from everywhere. That's how it seems now. It's amazing. It's amazing. So we got to keep going, right?
Yeah. I definitely want to create waves, you know, for sure. I mean, like you said, I keep doing these little things and doing what occurs to me to do next, you know, and it's like, and serving the person in front of me, you know, whether it's somebody that I know that, or whether it's someone who's just been, you know, one thing I learned in this understanding is I say yes to everything. Hey, will you speak to this person? My friend's friend is struggling with this, or can you have a conversation with that person, or this, you know, not even about money. It's just kind of like, you should speak to that. I'm always like, yes, and because, you know, that's the spiritual intelligence behind life, how it works for me. You know, it's kind of like, it just puts people in my path and I follow the direction and things happen. You know, it's kind of like, it's that cool. So yeah, I just keep saying yes to things, although, you know, I've definitely got a desire to create waves, you know.
Yeah. The man from Del Monte, he said yes.
Yeah. I remember that advert. Yeah.
Jason, thank you so much for being part of the 1990 series. A great conversation, and let's see what waves what waves crash.
Watch this space. Watch this space. It's going to happen.
Good stuff. 2020. Let's go for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lots of love to you, and
thanks, Amanda.
Lots of love to everybody who's watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you. Bye bye all. Bye bye.